Alright, so I thought I'd make a video on the progress of the Rotodyne. The Rotodyne's pretty much done. Competition's, I think, in like 6 days. I haven't worked on this in quite a few days because I think it's pretty much all set to go. What I'm going to show you, first of all, is how to connect a module. So I made a couple modules for this. So if we look, for example, this is one of them. This is the container carriage. So this is used to pick up containers and move them. There's also the firefighting module. So these will be released, either with it or soon after. Let's look at how to connect the carriage. So first thing you want to do is you want to open up the carriage, which will be included with when I release it. You want to make your selection grid large enough so that it completely encompasses all of it. You want to copy it. Then you want to load in the Rotodyne. So I have a bunch of different saves. So you just pick the one you have. Now, as you'll notice, you'll see all the red interaction problem. It's doing that because it's interacting with the ground. So all you have to do is move the whole Rotodyne up. And then if you go back to selection grid, you'll notice that it's now no longer showing red. You'll also notice that it automatically is in the correct position so that you can connect it. So all you have to do is do paste and clear content. Then you can go back to move if you want and move it back down to the ground and it's connected. So let's spawn it in. As you notice, the carriage auto connects. The lights are on because currently, as you see, the bottom carriage is dangling. We haven't attached that yet, so the lights will automatically come on when this is disconnected, so that the lights come on when you're lowering this down to connect to a container. Once it connects, those lights will go off, so I can show you that in here. So we'll go ahead and we'll go inside. This is all set up for Stormlink. There are 48 seats. This is a really good moneymaker in Stormlink. Go ahead and we'll jump in. Those hardpoint connectors also connect the camera. So once we turn on the avionics master, you'll notice we have a camera. We'll turn on master power. We'll just get ourselves started up here. These 8 buttons here are F1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Those are our functions for our module. So there'll be a little checklist with each module that tells you what each function button does. So on this one, function 7, that will connect the carriage. So as you can see, it jumped up towards us. The carriage, the lower carriage connected the upper carriage, and the lights turned out. All right. So let's go ahead and we will taxi out. So I'm going to remove the brake. I'll go through more of a startup procedures video once I actually do a release. All right. So if we turn on the AP Master gyro, and we don't have any of the autopilot mode selected, that just puts on the gyro. Alright, so I'm just gonna, I'll manually fly over, we'll just pick up a container and we'll put it down. Alright, so I'm gonna turn, I'm gonna use my 1 and 2 key. My 1 key will start to advance my props, and as you can see, that starts pushing me forwards here. And so we're just gonna go about, 60 something knots towards Spy Cakes here. We'll grab a container. So I'm using the props to push me forward, so it lets keep my deck angle nice and straight. So as you can see, we can see through that lower carriage, so I'm just using the 2 key to slow back down. And then since the throttle's all the way up the ceiling here, so as I'm going to now just fly like a helicopter. And so we'll go down, we'll land, and we'll select one of the containers, and we'll just quickly do a quick container handling, and we'll deliver one over to probably. It's going to be the closest. Actually might go a little bit further, that way I can show you some of the other features of the Rotodyne. Alright, so I'm just going to touch down here. So once we touch down, I'm going to put my brake back on. You see brake is 100%. We're going to push a little collective down, that will just keep us on the ground. So of course, in real life you wouldn't want to be walking this close to props, but just try not to run it. Alright, so this is Sawyer North, so that's pretty good. That's give us a little bit of time. So make sure the connector's on. So this is actually really pretty easy with that camera to connect. Actually just go out and see if I can not walk on the prop, and I'll show you. So the camera is directly in the center. It's kind of hard to see, but it's directly in the center here. And there's that hole you can see, that orange square, is right there in the carriage. So that aligns you right perfectly in the middle of the container. So it makes it very easy for you to use the camera to line up. So the container we selected was this this yellow oops right here. So let's actually put in an altitude to hold. So our autopilot's still on. Let's actually look at our heading too. So our heading is 299. So let's make that 300. All right. So if a zero's in the heading hold, it's going to disable that part of the autopilot. Now that we have a number in there, as you can see, it snapped us and it's holding 300. Now we want to do, let's check what our altitude is now. Our altitude's 40 feet, so let's make our altitude, let's do 65 feet. And as you can see, it's going to lift us back up. I'm just going to take out that trim that I put in there because the autopilot's just trying to fight the trim. So as you see, we're pretty well aligned, so I'm going to start to just slowly, I'm actually going to bring the gear up as well. You can see, gear come up. And I'm just going to slide over. And we have the F7, remember, attaches that lower carriage, the upper carriage, so I'm going to select that to detach it. And as you notice, the lights automatically come back on. Alright, so now I'm going to lower it down, so F8 is lower. And as you can see, that was the hole we were looking through on the lower carriage. And so that's pretty good right there. As you can see, I need to turn my heading to the right a little bit, so I'm just gonna, I can either do this with the heading hold or I can do this manually. And as you can see, that aligns me pretty well with the container. Alright, so let's look outside. As you can see, it's just above the container, so let's align. So we have those autopilot modes on holding us. So now, as you notice, if you look at the top of this container, it's a cross. So this little dot right here in the middle of the cross, if we put that in the dot of our hanging carriage, that will make sure we get a really easy, quick connection. So right there, it's a little bit far, right about there. So let's look outside. As you can see, we're pretty well aligned. So right there is that cross brace. All right, so let's go down. We'll lower the winch. And we're going to watch it, and it should connect. Okay, as you can see, it snapped, it connected. So we're just using the camera and the autopilot. Now we can shut off F8, turn on F6, and that will start to, as you can see, it's taking the slack on the cables and raising it up. All right, and what we'll do here is F7 reattaches the carriage and shuts off the lights. So once we get close, it will snap on. Now you notice sometimes it doesn't want to snap. All you have to do is push down on the collective and it will snap. Alright, so now that's permanently connected to us, so let's start putting in, let's get ready to go to Soaring North. So Soaring North is right here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a waypoint. Alright, so I'm going to go over here, I'm going to go to waypoint, I'm going to select input waypoint and submit, and you'll notice the needle will point directly, this is ADF direction to waypoint. This will point at all times to your waypoint. So if you're to the right of it, it will point to the left. If you're behind it, it will point straight ahead. If you're ahead of it, it will point right behind. It will always point directly to the waypoint. As you can see, we can see where it is there. It's pointing right to it. All right, so let's increase our altitude. Let's go up to, we'll do 500 feet for now. All right, and I'm going to take off the heading hold. So right now I have 305 entered in there. If I want to shut off my heading hold, I'm going to put in a 0 and enter it, and now I'm manually controlling the heading. So let's turn manually. If we look here, it's telling us a 087 heading will take us to that waypoint. All right, and as you can see, there's the needle. The needle's pointing directly to it. So we're going to get the needle straightened up. We don't, you know, I could put a 087 and it would turn right to it. So as you can see, that needle will follow it. So let's turn again past it. And as you can see, the needle follows it. So that allows us to quickly go straight to a waypoint. So let's put in 087. So put in our heading hold, 87, enter. And now as you see, the autopilot will point us to the waypoint. All right, so there we are. It's going to point us right at the waypoint. All right, so perfect. All right, so now what we can start to do is we can start to increase our prop. Now, this is controlled with the 1 and 2 keys, so we don't have to look up here. All right, so start to increase it, and I'm just going to increase it to about 35. 35 should be our fastest speed. So we're going to start with 35. And as you can see, very simply, very easily, it gets a little wobble as it's going through the modes, but that will smooth out. All right, and so let's increase some more. And I'm going to actually go to full throttle, or full prop pitch. And the reason I do that is for fuel savings. All right, so if we look at full prop pitch, that's going to be our best efficiency. I'm actually going to turn on some lights here. We'll do beacon, nav lights, strobes. Those should have been on in the beginning. We'll actually go to night too. I can show you I'll show you the lights really quick. So we have realistic strobes with a blink and pause. We have our beacons on the tail. Our nav lights are accurate. We can turn on our cabin lights, our cockpit lights, and our cabin lights. Our logo lights will show us the Rotodyne on top. We have taxi lights, which you will not see because the nose wheel is in the well, and then you have landing lights, which are on the wings. All right, so let's quickly talk about prop settings here as we go to Sawyer North. And going back down to our navigation system here, as you see, needle's pointing right to it, 087. We're going 087. It's going to take us 3 minutes and 36 seconds to get there, and it's 7 nautical miles away. All right, so if we look over here, this is our fuel section of our panel. So I set this up like a real airplane. I was a commercial airline pilot. So you have essentially your electrical section, your engine section, you have your fuel section, and this is part of your engine section down here. So if we look, we have our wing fuel, our fuselage fuel, our total fuel. We have how many gallons per hour we're burning. We have our range in nautical miles at this setting, which is 542 nautical miles. And the fuel time to empty in minutes is 231 minutes. So if you figure, 240 minutes would be 3 hours, so we're just under 3 hours there. So that's at full prop pitch, 100% prop pitch. Now, as you see, we had a wobble, and that's because of the container. And that's the reason why I pushed the props forward. When we go fast and this container's under us, the center of gravity is very low, and it was causing us to essentially act like a pendulum. So that's why I quickly pushed the prop forward. So if you're having some instability issues with the container, just slow down essentially. So I slowed down by increasing more props. So now let's go back to 3.5. 3.5 is our max speed. So let's go down to 3.5. And you'll notice our speed will start picking up. This is putting less load on the turbines, and it's going to cause us to, as you can see, we're getting a wobble because of the container. Go right by that mountain. And as you can see, the wobble has fixed itself. All right. So you'll notice we're burning 3,600 gallons per hour. So we're burning a lot more fuel now. We haven't really increased speed. If you want to increase speed even more, you want to go to max available RPM. You want to click on that. All right, so as you can see, that's essentially an RPM limiter. So we have a couple here. One is ground idle. So when we start our engines, it's best to start it in ground idle. That will be part of the startup procedure. That limits the RPM of the engine to something like 500, so that you're not burning a ton of fuel while you're on the ground. I'm actually going to increase my altitude. I am skimming the mountains here. So let's go to 1,500, just so that we don't hit a mountain. All right. So when we're on the ground, we want to do ground idle. That will just limit our how much power we're putting out to the rotors. It's going to make it very difficult for us to take off, which is good because we don't want to take off till we're ready. And it's also going to keep us burning a lot less fuel. In normal mode, we're at our normal setting. And then if we want to go to max available RPM, that's for a very fast cruise. We can do that by selecting this button. So as you notice, at 35% prop and max available RPM, we're doing about 200 knots with a container. We'll be doing, I think it's like 220 without a container. But look at our fuel burn. We're burning about 5,800 gallons per hour. That gives us a range of 278. Remember our range with our when we had our full prop and we had our normal RPM on, that was 500 nautical miles. and we had 230 minutes till empty. We only have 85 now, so that's burning a lot more fuel. So if you want to go fast, that's fine, but it's going to burn a lot more fuel. So one thing we can do is we can take off max available RPM, and as you'll notice, it automatically is reducing our gallons per hour because it's slowing down our turbines. So it puts a limiter on our turbines of 1200 RPM around there. Again, if we click it back up, you'll notice it allows our turbines to go up to a higher RPM. Higher RPM, the more fuel we're going to burn. So let's remove that and let's go to max prop again. So we'll go to 100% prop. So I'm just pushing the 1 key to push that forward. All right, so this is our max efficiency. So our props are doing the most work, which is going to put load on our turbines, and as you can see, it's reducing our turbines down because they are under load. It's going to be, between 500 and 600 RPM. And as you can see, we're burning less than half the amount of fuel. So we were doing 194 knots. We're doing 140 knots now. So we're going about, it's that 53 knots slower, but we're burning half the fuel. So we didn't lose half our speed, but we are now burning, half the fuel. So I recommend that when you're cruising around, now, Stormworks is pretty small. As you can see, we went way past it. We're way over here already. The amount of fuel we have in the Rotodyne, we can do like 5 round trips to the Arctic. So there's no real reason to be burning that much fuel. Doing 140 knots in Stormworks is pretty damn fast. So you don't have to really worry about that too much. All right, so let's actually go deliver this container. So as you can see, our number changed, right? We were, originally it was telling us 87. Well, now it's showing 266. Well, if anybody's a pilot will know that's the reciprocal of 87. Well, we passed it. So there's a couple ways to know we passed our station. 1, the needle's pointing right behind us. 2, time to waypoint is negative. That means we're flying away. And as you can see, the nautical miles to waypoint is going to increase because that's how many miles away from the station we are. So we're flying away from it. So all we have to do is enter in this number, 266, into our heading hold. Now this number will change as we turn. So once we roll out on 266, we might have to correct it again, but we'll put that in. That will be a good start. So as you can see, it's going to change numbers here. We'll go 267, 268. So it's increasing, right? So let's we'll get ahead of that and we'll put 270 in there. All right, so there's the 270, so we might need more, so 280. And that's because our aircraft is turning. So as long as we put that number in, we'll be good. So it's I overestimated it. So it's about 272. Let's put that in, 272. So you don't have to do it the way I was doing it. That's estimation. You don't have to estimate it. You can just put in whatever number's here. Then when you roll out, check it again and put the number in. Now, as you can see, we're wobbling. That's just because we have the container on there. As you can see, it does stop wobbling pretty quick. When this does not have a container on it, the PIDs are tuned to not have that wobble. When you add a container in, you might get a wobble. So that's because of the container. So instead of having 2 systems, essentially 1 PID tuned for a container, 1 PID tuned for no container, I just opted for. You're going to have a little wobble. The PIDs are going to take care of it, but it might just take a couple seconds. All right, so let's look at where we're going here. 272, we have 272 in there. Our needle's pointing directly to the waypoint. Time to waypoint's 2 minutes and 2.73 minutes. And it's going to take us, and we're 6 nautical miles away. So I'm actually going to reduce get rid of this waypoint right here. And we'll just navigate via instruments all the way there in the dark. All right. Well, actually, let's add some fog in here too. So we'll make this a real instrument approach. So I'll add in 60% fog. So as you can see, we're socked in the fog. Can't really see anything. All right. So time to waypoint's 2 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get right to the waypoint, and I'm just going to stop. And then I'm going to slowly go down. So this is going to show you how even with a very simplistic navigation system based on an old school ADF, we could very easily get there, even in the soup. You don't need a fancy, moving map type system. I find that to be very boring. It's one of the reasons why I left the airlines. It was just incredibly boring flying. All right, so we're a minute, 1.5 minutes away. So, you know, a minute and 30 seconds. I'm going to reduce our altitude. We'll go down to 500 feet. I don't think there are any mountains really close to us, or any tall mountains here. All right, so we're a minute and, you know, we're about 1.1 there, so that's 66 seconds, something like that. All right, so we're 2 nautical miles away. We're 0.9. All right, and we're still going. As you can see, we can see the light of the airport there. I think that's O'Neill. So it says 273 now. Let's type that in, 273, 273, be even more accurate. And let's look at our time. We're 0.5 away from the station. All right, so all I'm going to do to slow down and hover is to reduce the prop all the way. So once we get close here, I'm going to do that. So we can actually see down there, that's where we're going. All right, so let's watch this. And now I'm going to start slowly decreasing my prop all the way to 0. All right, so that's all I have to do. Decrease the prop all the way to 0. All right, let's look at it. We are 0.1, and it's 0.1 from the waypoint. And as you can see, we're pretty close. All right, as you can see, our speed, we're zeroed. So as you can see, we are right above it. So even socked in this weather, using this very simple navigation system, we can pretty easily navigate. So let's, we'll use our altitude hold. We'll go down to, let's say, we'll do 200 feet. I'm not sure what the altitude is there, so I don't want to hit anything. So as you can see, the time to waypoints dance around. That's because we're not moving. All right, so we're 0.03 nautical miles. So that was pretty accurate to be able to do that, you know, in this fog. So I'm trying to remember where the actual drop-off point is here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, I'm going to disable my autopilots. So I'm going to disable my heading by putting a 0 in. I'm going to disable my altitude hold by putting a 0 in. I'm going to leave this on. That leaves my gyro on. I'm going to turn on my landing lights, which may not help in this fog. Alright, so now I can kind of see off this building here. I have a Stormlink, and that's why the building might look different to your building. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and we'll put this container down. I think the drop-off area is actually over there for this base. I'm not sure. I haven't gotten the message yet that that the container was accepted. So let's fly around. Sometimes you have to do this really in-game, is fly around until it gives you the message it's delivered. I think it's actually over here, more closer to the water, is the trigger for giving you a payout. So let's find it. Yeah, I'm not going to play around with it too much, but it, you know, the drop-off is there. Is somewhere here, so you'd have to play around to find the actual drop-off. So let's just drop the container. So this is a good use case here. As you can see how dark it is, and we're in the fog. So this is really going to kind of show you, you know, like worst case scenario, what it's going to be like delivering. I don't have a lot of wind on. Wind, you know, could make it even worse. But you know, I'll stop using third person so we can show this could be used in a career mode. So I'm going to just I'll put in some autopilot here just to hold me while I lower this down. So let's say we want 80 feet, and let's do a 270 heading. So let's put altitude hold of 80 feet and a heading of 270. Okay, so now that's going to hold us in position like before. Now what we want to do is we can shut off F6. F6 was just winches up. F7, as you can see, that disconnects it again, and it turns on the lights. So now as we lower it down, we'll be able to start to see our surroundings. We can see if this is actually clear where we are to drop the container. Alright, just waiting for this to hit the ground. Okay, that looks like it's almost on the ground now. Alright, so that's on the ground now. So we can, I'm going to let it have some more slack here before I disconnect it so it doesn't snap up and hit us. You know, we should be good at this altitude, but I'm just giving it some slack. Alright, and now we're going to hit F5. F5 will disconnect. As you can see, it's disconnected now. Go ahead and we'll raise up our winches. Alright, so as you can see, even with the weather being, you know, this difficult, we can easily do our work with that navigation system. Alright, and we'll also put on our, you know, if we do this attaches the carriage, that also shuts off our lights. So if you want a light still, you can keep that on until it gets all the way to the top. This is the disconnect for the container. We don't need that anymore. We can either leave it on or shut it off. It's up to us. Alright, so as you can see, using this little hole in the middle, that's how we very easily aligned. Alright, so now it's all the way up to our camera, so let's click F7 and it connected. So that's connected, and the lights went out. Alright, so pretty simple. Just want to show you that module, how to connect the module, do a little bit of flying in the Rotodyne. Thank you for watching.